Before I go out, I want to pay my tribute to Robert Burns because this is the day in which Robert Burns is commemorated in Scotland and across the world. Robert Burns, to me, is a global superstar, and I want to explain why. First of all, for those who don't know, Burns was a farmer's son from Ayrshire who wrote the most exquisite love poetry, and he also wrote quite heartfelt verse about social justice. He spoke for the common man, to the common man. And his work on this front inspired many people across the world. Take Abraham Lincoln, for example, who would recite Burns' poetry. He was inspired by those words. Remember, Abraham Lincoln was a great social reformer. And he wanted to come and visit Burns's cottage in Ayrshire before he died. Sadly, he was assassinated. But after his death, his wife did make it over to visit Burns's cottage in Ayrshire on his behalf. He inspired Martin Luther King. He inspired John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men novel and film. He was a massive influence on Bob Dylan, who cites that Love Is Like a Red, Red Rose was the kind of trigger point for him to start writing music and song. It's also said that he influenced Michael Jackson's Thriller album. How can you say that? But listen to the words of Tam O'Shanter. So here was a man whose words penetrated all cultures across the world. In Russia, they produced two commemorative stamps, 1956, 1959, with Burns's head on the front. Isn't that extraordinary? There are 60 monuments and plaques around the world dedicated to Robert Burns, including one in Central Park in New York. That is the imprint he has made. His words still ring true today, don't they? Man's inhumanity to man makes countless thousands mourn. When we look around us, how poignant those words remain. And he left a legacy for Scotland and the world. But first of all, I just want to talk about Scots, because he was a small, humble man from Scotland who made a global imprint. Think of Auld Lang Syne. After Happy Birthday, it's the most recognised song across the world, and it is still sung to represent unity and forgetting the past and looking forward with optimism. Every new year, you hear it right across the world. So that is something that we should take pride in. But he did say, "Oh, wad the power, the gift to gie us, to see ourselves as others see us." Do you know the worst critics of Scots are Scots themselves? And Robert Burns proved that being humble and playing small are not the same thing. We've got to remember that. We are highly regarded across the world. It's only when you step into Scotland you hear self-criticism. We've got to step out of that. We're in a time when the world needs our ideas, just like in the 18th century, when Scotland was the poorest nation in Europe, yet we had the highest literacy rate in the world. And Voltaire, the French philosopher, said, "The whole world looks to you for its ideas and civilization." We should be influencing civilization across the world now. Look at the state of the world. Let's take some heart from Robert Burns. Meanwhile, to Rabbi, I toast thee.